It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, May 7th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is trying to turn our attention from that horrible draft lottery to free agency and what the Flyers can do there.
I get that.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter, and of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, I am still bummed out about the lottery, but we do have to press on. It's interesting. I think in a lot of ways, the vibe I got from people out there that they were more upset about the Michkov snub for the Calder than they were about the lottery results.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I answered some of the comments about the lottery because, I'm not here to make you feel better or make you feel worse. I just tell you what my truth is. But you're going to get a good player at 6. I think that's what's lost in the process here is that. So again, there's always going to be these articles and columns from people who don't watch the draft, don't watch players, and tell you what you're supposed to feel in Philly. That's been going on forever. And I just think that's the bad way to go if you're a fan, because you're never going to feel good about that.
Right. And I think, your point about they will get a good player at 6.
Yeah.
Is it going to be the star player of your dreams? No. But is any player in this draft the star player of your dreams? Also no. So I think you're just going to get a really good player. And I think that what we know from history says that somebody's going to make a pick out of left field above the Flyers. Somebody will, and somebody will drop to the Flyers. So I think there's some really good opportunity there, and we're going to talk more about that opportunity on tomorrow's show as we do our focus on some draft prospects here. I think as far as the Michkov snub goes, there was a sentiment out there that people kind of blame John Tortorella that Michkov wasn't able to get as many points, I think, to put him higher in that Calder conversation. And I would say yes and no. I think there is some truth to that because he did kind of get messed around with in terms of his line mates and building chemistry. But also, I think those other players that did get the finalist nod were also very good. It doesn't mean that Michkov, wasn't good. It just meant that people voted differently. And now Michkov gets to prove them wrong, which I think a lot of people are excited about.
Right. There's always a little bit of a John factor, but it didn't factor in with me. I still voted the way I voted. I had him higher. I had Wolf 4 and Cutter Gauthier 5. I had Wolf 4 because I felt he was really, really good. He was the reason they got close to the playoffs, but they didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
So then it was okay. And I backed off that and I looked at everything else. And, if you don't think Macklin Celebrini had a great year, then you're just biased towards Michkov, and you have to kind of look at it and see what he did too. And I think that's a part of it too. There's a little bit of that bias, but do I think he should have been a finalist? Yeah, that's why I voted that way.
Yeah, and I think so. I think it's just a matter of opinion. And
it is.
And I think, as we said yesterday, there wasn't a chance that he was going to win the thing. And so it's kind of ticky-tack in this 2, 3, 4 position for those guys. And this is how it came out in the wash. And again, I think everybody's excited to see him use that as motivation. So
yeah, a lot of great players haven't won.
Yep. So looking forward to his sophomore season next year for sure. I think, there was a lot of consternation about the lottery rules out there. And yes, it's kind of convoluted, but you know what? It is what it is. And now
what are you going to do about it?
I know
nothing you can do about
there's
it.
nothing to do. So now we have to move on and figure out what the best options are for the Flyers. Right. And that's what we're going to do. But I think there's a lot of really interesting possibilities. And, the Flyers do have those 7 picks in the first 2
Yeah,
rounds.
they have a lot of currency. They do.
So there's a lot of good to look forward to
Yeah.
here. So I'm excited about all of that. One of the maybe, I wouldn't say great things out there is free agency. And I think, as we know, just overall, it's kind of a weak year for free agents across the NHL. And so the guys that may have warranted some competition aren't going to have that competition, and there's going to have to be a lot of overpaying this offseason for any free agent in any position. And so I think really the big picture for the Flyers here is that there's 3 problems they have to solve that we've been talking about, and everybody kind of knows. There's the center position, there's a defenseman, and then the wild card is the goaltending dilemma that,
Mhm.
again, been talking about and what the best options there are for the Flyers. And I think given the landscape of free agency, obviously what happens with the Leafs is going to have a huge determining factor because you have Tavares and Marner and all of that. But aside from that kind of shiny object, I think the Flyers have a big question to answer because they're not going to be able to answer all 3
No.
in free agency because of the cap. So what would you prioritize if you were them?
I would prioritize center because I know what's out there in goaltending. I will try and trade for a goalie, and if I could trade for one, great, but I would prioritize center.
Yeah, I think that's the right move. I think that while you would like to get a stronger defenseman in there, I think that the center role and the center depth is a bigger priority for the Flyers. And there's some other moves, as we talked about with the goalie dilemma last week on one of our episodes. You can go back and listen. I think there are other solutions and there are other issues that have to be solved before they could turn to free agency on that front. Now, we're going to talk about options for all 3 positions should the Flyers pursue it in the next segment. But
And they probably could get 2 players. Like we looked at that in a previous episode, and they probably could get 2 players. So there's that too.
yeah, and I think with the cap space, you could get 1 good player and 1 depth player.
Correct.
And that's kind of how you have to look at it here, that's the best they could do in free
Yeah.
agency this offseason. Because again, they want to have some cap space to work with. They don't want to use up all the money in free agency. And I think, they have about 25 million to sign their RFAs and any UFAs. So it's not a lot, but it's doable, especially if you want, say, like a 4 to 5 million cushion there. And
and you might need bonus money for whoever you get in this draft if he's, ready before you know it. So, you got to look at that too, depending on who would fall to them.
Right. And I think, when you're looking at the RFA situation and how much of that money they're going to take up, I think we're lucky in some ways that the pending RFAs haven't been super outstanding. They've been good.
Correct.
Some of them have been good, but they haven't been so good that they're going to price the Flyers out of
Not
a
yet.
of a UFA market.
Will be that guy. Yeah,
Yes, down the
is going to
road.
cost.
Oh,
but so
sure.
far, you're right.
For this year's off season with the guys they have to it's not going to be an issue.
Totally manageable.
And that's where I think the Flyers did get really lucky, right?
Yes. No question. Yeah, they haven't had a guy that was going to break the bank or make you have to trade them because you can't afford them like we've seen other teams do. So no, they're in a good spot in that regard.
Yeah. And then I think, the other question here is going to be in the goaltending side of things. They have to be able to get somebody who's willing to go to the AHL if they sign somebody in free agency there, right?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Whoever they get, like every goalie you get wants to stick in the NHL and wants to play in the NHL. But I think you're right. And this is what I think takes someone like Jake Allen out of it because he's 34 years old. You don't want a guy like that right now because Jake Allen's not going to the AHL ever again. He's just not. So you have to get somebody who is on the cusp of making it, not making it, or has made it and has gone down, has done both. Somebody like that who would be understanding. I tend to agree with that.
So I think that is the best approach there, especially because it's like a catch-22 because you want somebody who's willing to go down to the AHL and who's borderline, right? but what we have is borderline. And so does that improve your goaltending situation? Maybe, maybe not. But I think that's the interesting question that they'll
I
have to
mean,
answer.
the only other option is that you've already decided you're going to get a Jake Allen type and just force Fedotov and the minors and make him collect his pay. I mean, you can do that, but you
Right.
have to have the right goalie to do that. And I don't think Jake Allen would be that guy, just as an example.
Yeah, so we're going to talk more about Jake
Yes.
Allen and the pros and cons there, as well as some of the other candidates at all the positions that we've talked about. And we'll do that coming up next. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, and each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety because I'm lazy and I don't want to do the work there. And then it makes it the perfect grab and go snack for your busy days. I also have them at my desk while I'm working. And I recently picked up a whole box of the sea salt and vinegar no shells variety from Wonderful Pistachios, my favorite. And I'm so glad I have that big supply. It's so delicious and it's healthy too. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. These little green wonders pack a protein punch. So get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, on our next show tomorrow, we are going to look at those potential options with the sixth pick and who could potentially fall to the Flyers, as well as look at some other deeper prospects in the draft. We do have those other picks. So we've got Nicholas Sikora, and if that name sounds familiar, it should. And LJ Mooney, who also has some NHL ties,
He
and
does.
looking forward to talking about both of those guys as well. Now, with the forwards that are out there right now, so the centers that I think are the most viable, unfortunately, are RFAs and would require a trade, right?
Right.
And that's Gabe Velarde and Mason McTavish. And you talked about a potential McTavish trade already on a different show, but
Yep.
like, what would it take to get either one of those guys? And are they the right options?
Well, it's going to take one first, probably one second, and a player, probably for both. And depending on, like I would think Velarde, it's going to be like let's say a C prospect, and for McTavish a B prospect. I think that's what it's going to take, because again, and the problem with these deals are, it sounds great, and when you get that player, you still have to sign that player to a long-term deal for the next year.
Right. I think that's like the biggest part of it, you know?
That is the biggest part of it. So it's like, so it is good to get one of these players if you can get them, but you're also one out of probably 15 other teams that are calling about these players. And so it's going to get very competitive. Now, I don't know that Anaheim's really going to do anything with McTavish because they're getting a new coach. And I doubt they would trade a player before they get a new coach. So I really think that one's on the back burner until you find out who that coach is and what their vision is. Velarde, yes, that's a possibility because that's a team that doesn't have a lot of cap space. So that's one where it's like, yeah, you probably can work a deal there.
Yeah, and I think, the other big factor there is the Flyers not having a coach. And do they want to wait for a
Correct.
coach before they make any of those moves themselves? I think that makes a certain degree of sense. The other kind of category of people out there is guys still in the playoffs because they're a wild card,
Yeah.
right? Because are they going to do well and want to stick with their team? Or do they do well but get knocked out and want to come back and make another run at it with those existing teams and maybe take a team friendly deal to stay where they are? But then they're also old, right?
Right.
And so I think like the one name that stands out amongst the old guys, I mean, there's Brandon Tanev, right? He's old. Robbie Fabry is a good option, but Michael Granlund seems like the most viable, but he also probably wants to stick where he is, right?
He probably does. And 2 years ago, nobody would have wanted Michael Granlund.
I
Like
know.
so I don't think he'd be the right fit. I think I just I feel like if he reverts back to like even what I don't remember how many points he got this year, but I'm willing to guess if he comes to Philly, he's not going to get the same amount of points because the game will change. There'll be more different kind of pressure, and I don't trust Granlund enough for that, and I wouldn't sign him.
Right. I think that's like the big question with him. And that's why I'm just like, there isn't really a ton of guys at center who are still in the playoffs that I would wait it out for. I just don't see a lot of good options there. Now, is there an option for like a super depth center? Maybe. But like it's not going to be a guy that's going to be a huge contributor to the Flyers there.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, if you go back to the Nashville stats with Granlund, he had 36 points, then with the Sharks 60, but he also could freewheel it with the Sharks, and then 45 with the Sharks, 21 with Dallas. That's good, but 2 points in the playoffs, 2 in 7 games. How many resources do you want to spend for that? I don't
either. And that's the thing is like, to me, we said we would prioritize the center position in terms of a free agent,
but
but
you're not going to buy just to buy.
yeah, I think that it's be careful with it and be
Right.
deliberate about it because, I mean, like John Tavares isn't going to sign with the Flyers. I mean,
No,
that's for sure. Right.
Although he
So
would get a tax break because he doesn't like the taxes in Toronto. I make a joke there because he complained about it. But
yeah,
the expectation is he'll sign for less in Toronto. So I don't even think he's on
yeah,
the table.
exactly. So it's really difficult, I think, at this point to suss out the center market until we're
Yeah,
further along in the
I
playoffs
agree.
at the earliest. But beyond that, I think this is maybe the depth signing that the Flyers would have to do given who's available. Now, for the defensemen, it's kind of funny because like Ekblad is like the one huge name out there, right? Now he's had his own issues this season, for sure. But
But not injury issues. This is
no, I
aggression
know,
issues.
I
Yeah,
know. That's the thing that's so weird about it. And obviously we don't know how far Florida is going to go and what
right.
that situation is going to be. So I feel like you have to kind of table him
You
for
do.
this for the same reasons as we're talking about some of the other guys. Ironically, Ivan Provorov is the other top option out there right now. That's not happening,
Never happened.
right? So um, I think Gavrikov from LA is the first maybe kind of option out there. Now he has said he wants to stay with the Kings,
Yeah.
but that being said, his last contract was 5.875 and he had a pretty solid season this year with 30 points. And I think, he would be a good addition to the Flyers blue line.
He would. He's a good, solid player who blocks a lot of shots, lays the occasional hit, gets some points, can puck move. He's 29. He can do everything well. Like he's going to cost you if it's to the Flyers, like the Kings just say, yeah, we can't get you. Yeah, they're going to want like 6.87, something like that.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I would pass on that. I would say, hey, if you want, 3 years at 6, I'll do that. But I don't think he'll do that.
Right. I think that's the issue. And again, he does want to stay with the Kings. Now,
Right.
I don't know that the Kings would want to pay him that much either, but they might suck it up just to make it work. But
Right.
I think
Depending
that,
on the new coach, like that's
yeah.
they have that same situation.
Well, and they just, Rob Blake.
They didn't fire the coach. Like Hiller's still there, but I'm just saying I think there will be a new coach. I will go out and
after they hire a new GM.
After they hire a new GM, I think there will be a new coach. So, and that could muddy things too.
Yeah. So who knows with a new GM what they're going to decide to do. So I think, something to consider, but be cautious about. And I think the only other option out there right now is Ryan Lindgren. And I think that's an intriguing option because, he had 4.5 in his last contract. So even if he's asking for a raise, it won't be as high as Gavrikov. He had 22 points this season. He's only 27. He's a solid defenseman.
He is. He's had an injury history. That's the worry there, but you never worry about the way he plays on the ice. He was Adam Fox's right-hand guy. I've watched him for a very long time. He could play this game, and he plays it tough, but you can't give him more than 3 years because I don't know if he'll last after that.
Right.
So if you give him a 3-year deal and you want to give him 3 and 6 and overpay a little bit, that's fine because he could play the position. He could play in your top 4. He's played top line before, but I think that's more because of Fox. I really think he's a better second pairing guy. And so, yeah, if you want to pay him like 5.5, 6, yeah, you probably could get him but I would only do it for 3 years just based on the injury history. But he is a good player.
Yeah. And then for goaltender, we talked about Jake Allen a little bit. He is 34 years old. He made 3.85 on his last contract. I think he's going to re-sign with the Devils.
I don't
But
know.
it is a question. It is absolutely a question out there. He's definitely a backup kind of goalie with his numbers. He's not going to be a starter anymore in this league.
No.
And so he may want to go somewhere where there is opportunity to get more games, and the Flyers have that opportunity right now.
They do. And he had a .906 save percentage, which is better than the Flyers goalies. But the basic question I ask is how many wins over what the Flyers have in net is he going to bring you? 4?
Exactly.
Is it 4 wins? Maybe 5? Like, is it worth it to get a 34-year-old goalie for that? I say no.
I mean, maybe on a 1-year deal, but nothing more.
Yeah, that's it. If you got a 1-year deal and you say, hey, he's going to win us some more games, help us develop better because we'll be in more games. Yes, that's fine. I could go along with that premise. But he's not going to take a 1-year deal from a free agent contract. With the Devils, he might because he's already there. Right. From somebody else, I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's going to ask for 2. Because most goalies, if you notice, when they get signed, it's for 2.
Yeah, I think, Georgiev is another option out there, but No, I know. He's terrible.
He's
like,
really
that's the
lost
thing.
his game. I used to like Georgiev, and up until a year ago, I really backed him and watched a lot of him, and now, no. He's a hard no.
Yeah, and I say the same thing about Samsonov because
I've watched him falter too. I was high on him. I was certainly right about him being an NHLer. I was wrong about him being a number 1. A lot of people were. That's the way it is.
The difference in how Vegas plays with him, like, it is night and day.
Oh,
he just does not help that team at all.
No.
And, I think, 891 save percentage.
You already have that.
Yeah. So, like, what's the point?
There's no upgrade there.
The only other maybe for me is David Rittich. He only had $1 million contract with the Kings last year. He's 33. Like, he would take a 1-year deal, first off. You could play him in the AHL.
Yes.
But, not a great season relative to the previous season either. He went from a 921 save percentage down to 886. That is not good. But again, AHL, okay,
Right.
But is he Cal Peterson 2.0? Could be.
I mean, he's better than Cal Peterson. I will say that with great certainty. His career save percentage is 904. So we have to give him that. That's better than what they have. It would be an upgrade. Like, there's no question he is an upgrade. So if you get him on 1 year and he wants, I don't know, what was his salary last year? Sorry.
$1 million.
Yeah. So if you get him on a $2 million, that's fine. But the problem is, and this is a problem, will he sign for $2 million when Fedotov's making $3 million? He might not.
Yeah.
His agent might say he needs to make the same as him, especially if he's going to play at the NHL level, even though he took 1 this year. That's the problem.
Yeah, it could be. Goaltending is a huge dilemma on the free agent market, but there'll be lots more conversations to be had about that as the Flyers progress and maybe make some decisions about Kolosov and Fedotov and hire a coach. So we'll revisit it for sure. In the meantime, y'all have some great mailbag questions related to the cap and draft picks, and we will get to them coming up next.
An award-winning mattress can change your life. I speak from experience. It happened to me. After years of uncomfortable sleeps, I recently switched to Bear Mattress, and the results were instant. Bear Mattress is designed with a focus on recovery, cooling, and pressure relief to upgrade your sleep and improve your overall quality of life. I used to deal with night sweats, but Bear's best-in-class cooling ensures optimal temperature regulation, which prevents overheating and helps me stay comfortable all night long. Bear offers a wide variety of mattresses, but to get the right one for you, take their sleep quiz that matches you to your perfect mattress based on body type and sleep preferences. Go to bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout to get 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
All right, diving into the mailbag, Julian Sykes had a comment about the cap episode we did, saying, we're having the pain now. Let's not waste the last couple of seasons by trying to shortcut the process. Why the rush to get a center and defenseman and create cap issues? Let's continue the rebuild for further seasons and give opportunities to current prospects and aim to pick up some more high-end draft picks next year.
He's right. I mean,
yeah.
But it doesn't mean you don't look to upgrade the team, because if there is somebody out there you feel like will upgrade the team over the next 2 or 3 years, then you could do that, because that will help you develop too. Depth defenseman. Like, let's say Gavrikov out of the situation, you pick up a guy on a 1-year deal, not Eric Johnson, like somebody a little younger.
Right.
But you do that, that's fine too.
Yeah, especially because we don't know what's going on with Risto, right?
Correct. And that's what you have to do, is you have to get somebody that plays like that, because you don't know what his future is right now.
Yeah, exactly. Brian Van Wyck commented, I'm not sure why a significant UFA would want to sign with Philly. This is not a playoff roster, probably looking at lesser UFAs or a trade. Maybe York for a center makes sense. I wonder who they could get.
Yeah, I mean, significant, he's right. Like, Mitch Marner's not coming.
Correct.
That's significant, and he's not coming. So he's right about that. York would be used in a deal, and he would be used in a McTavish kind of deal. But again, we outlined that maybe that's not possible. And of course, it would be more than York. It'd be York and at least a first, but probably like a first. And maybe because York's an NHL starter and a pretty good one, some other pick, whatever it is, a fifth, whatever. Yeah, that is possible. Or somebody, I think you could get somebody who has maybe second line center potential, but you're not going to get like a guaranteed second line center unless this guy's making too much money or doesn't like the team he's on. And I don't know. I haven't identified that player yet.
Right. There's a lot of factors out there. And again,
I mean, Trevor Zegras, I guess, is the one guy who comes to mind.
Sure.
But I mean,
but again, we don't know what's going on with the Ducks. Like, they're kind of a big question mark right now.
And so are the Flyers with their coach. The new coach who comes in may be like, I don't like Zegras.
Well, that would be weird, but okay.
No, but I mean, we don't know.
That's true. That is true. As far as the not wanting to sign with Philly aspect of it, I think there's a lot of potential here. And if there's somebody that thinks they could win a spot on a line with Matvei Michkov, they might want to sign with the Flyers. And there is a lot of potential down the road. And so, especially because free agency is after the draft, they can see who the Flyers have drafted to kind of gauge what the future of the team looks like and if they want to be a part of it. And the other option is depth UFAs who are signing to make bank for a couple of years and then retire. So that also has its appeal. I mean, Garnet Hathaway is a perfect example of that, right?
Right. He's been very useful. And yes, that is one strategy. Again, like, the word significant means top 2 or 3 free agents, guys who can get 80 points in this league or 100, they're not coming.
Right.
Guys who don't control their destiny, who could get 80 and 100, like McTavish or Zegras, could come because they don't really have a say in it contract-wise. But then you have to hope, the same as Jamie Drysdale, that they do well, want to stay and whatever. Like, there's still that risk too, because you're going to give up significant assets. But I say, yeah, if it's still worth the risk. And it's still worth the calls, and you have to make the calls.
Bearded Brickhead asks, with 3 picks in the first, if there's someone they absolutely need to draft, can't they just package up picks and move up a few spots?
A few spots, yes. But like, if you're talking from 6 to 5 or 6 to 3, probably not. Like, again, looking at the teams that are in the top 5 right now, for some reason, people have identified Utah as like maybe they would trade that pick. Why? They
Why?
need a
I know.
future. They need the buzz. They're looking for the flash. They're not going to trade that pick. I'm
I
pretty
don't think
sure of
so
that.
either.
San Jose, Chicago, no, they're banking on these. This may be the last time either one of them gets this high. Number 1, probably not, and I forget who's 4th. So, I mean, it's unlikely. Now, from let's say the Colorado pick, can you move and package and trade up? Yes, absolutely. And we've
Exactly.
talked about that.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is like that's the pick that maybe you package up. Let's just say that pick winds up at 23. If you take that plus either a player or a pick in the second round and package that up to move up to like 15 or 16, I think that's a doable move up in this draft.
Yeah, actually, Utah's 4, Nashville is 5.
Right.
I don't think Nashville will trade that pick because I don't think
Oh,
Barry
they're a
Trotz
mess. They need
can
it.
afford to trade that pick. They need it. They haven't
Yeah.
developed, and they've traded away a lot of talent. It would be a horrible look.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think the Colorado pick is going to be the linchpin here.
That's the one that that may have some currency.
Yeah. Sir Fish commented that Anton Frandel is the pick. He's the type of guy to play good until he's 40. He's got size, strength, best shot in class, hands, passing ability, and defense. Do we think he's going to be available though?
Well, somebody's going to be available. Like, that's the whole thing. We could start putting all the names in the blender and say, well, Denoy is going to be available, or Frandel is going to be available, or O'Brien's going to be available. And all it takes is one pick to change all that. And then he's not. So do I like Anton Frandel? Yes. If he were there, would I take him? Yes. But I also have to see who else is on the board. That's a very important thing.
Yeah, I believe it. I absolutely believe it. But a lot of good options, and we'll continue to talk about them on tomorrow's show, of course. And as a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got mailbag questions or draft pick options you want us to discuss, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. It's every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale with NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. It's on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.